Okay, so my case was Roe versus Wade, which is, I'm sure you've probably heard of it. It's one of the first, major abortion cases, because before this there wasn't a lot of, laws about abortion, just said it was illegal, but no one had really challenged that until 1973. So it basically decided that the state ban on abortion was unconstitutional, so you couldn't, it made that you could have first trimester abortions, and second trimester was limited, so if your health was endangered, you could have an abortion. And then third trimester abortions were still banned unless the health was affected. So 1821, Connecticut had the first state law that made abortion illegal, and by 1900 all states had abortion made illegal, but then in 1973 there was a 7-2 majority vote in favor of Roe making abortion legal in her state. So this is Norma McCorvey, known as Jane Roe in the case. She was pregnant with her third child, but she didn't want to have it, and so she said that Texas law violated her constitutional rights to have an abortion. So, like I said, at the time it wasn't just Texas, most states restricted or banned abortion, but the 1960s, the sexual revolution and feminist movements challenged this a lot, and women were kind of pushing the line of what they could and couldn't do. And Texas law, only if your life was endangered you could have an abortion, but Roe's life wasn't endangered. She just said she didn't have enough money to travel out of the state, and therefore she didn't want to have her third child. So she filed a case against Henry Wade, who was a Dallas County District Attorney, and she won, so it was taken to the Supreme Court. And this affects your right to privacy, which is talked about in the First, Fourth, Ninth, and 14th Amendment, so the Due Process Clause. And it talked about this thing called the zone to privacy, which refers to a big, broad spectrum of things, including abortion. And the reactions were a lot of mixed ones, of course. So the National Abortion Rights Action League was formed, and Right to Life Committee. So her supporters talked about women's rights and your personal freedom and your privacy, of course. And they even talked about involuntary servitude, saying that if you're made a mother and you don't want to be, you're basically a slave, which was a little crazy. And then her opponents obviously said that you have rights of the moment of conception, so this thing called viability, if your baby can live outside of the womb, then it's a real person and has rights, if that makes sense. And present day, there's still a lot of reactions, like the March to Life every year. As you can see, in 2010, 250,000 people attended, and then it went up every year, including 2013. It went up more than doubled, so people definitely still care about the issue. So this shows that over the years, reactions go up and down a lot. People change, if they favor or oppose it, and this depends on your ethics, religion, biology. And then in May of 2014, 50% of Americans who were surveyed said it should only be legal in some circumstances. And then the Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act, this is partial birth abortion, so you basically have the baby, but it's the doctor kind of kills it. That was made illegal because of Roe versus Wade, because at the time it was legal, but then they made it illegal. But then pro-choice groups argued that the ban was kind of stepping on the Roe versus Wade decision, but the decision was held even though there's kind of a loophole, so you still kind of can have a partial birth abortion, but it's it's harder to, and that's when the baby's in the third trimester. Funny thing, in 1995, Jane Roe announced that she was actually pro-life now, and she's the one who, remember, caused this whole case. And she said she didn't expect, 20 years later, people to come up to her and say, thank you for letting me have 5 or 6 abortions. She didn't expect people to use it as birth control. And pro-lifers are still trying to overturn the decision, obviously religious groups and stuff like that. And for the StudentsForLife.org said that they're working on the state level, but ultimately the decision will lie within the Supreme Court if a national overturn was going to happen. And then a lot of laws also were inspired by Roe versus Wade, because they have to kind of limit the abortion law, so you can't use Medicaid to fund abortions, and Planned Parenthood is obviously always pretty controversial. President George Bush imposed a gag rule, so basically if you're in a federal funded clinic, they couldn't tell you that abortion was an option for you, but then Bill Clinton ended this gag rule in 1993. So Planned Parenthood, I'm sure you've heard about the controversy with it. Basically, people will go in there and try to make them look really bad and get it on video. There's always picketings in front of it, religious groups, like I said, and then there are even in extreme cases bombings. Here's some charts. So you can see in the first one, most abortions occur within 8 weeks into pregnancy, but then there are some of the later term that's in the smaller pie chart. And 71% of people surveyed said that it's within your rights to have an abortion. And then here's another public opinion poll. basically, like, if you're Jewish, you're more likely to say that you can have an abortion, but, like, it goes down to, like, white evangelicals, other end of the spectrum. And then I thought this was interesting, that if we honored each baby aborted since 1973 with a moment of silence, we would be silent for over 100 years.